let's get someone in the
Let's get in the chat.
Let's get someone in the chat to tell us they can hear us, and then we can hit record for the podcast. Can you hear him playing Pine Sap? Can you hear him playing keys?
I don't think so.
No, he can't hear you. That's funny. Austin plays the keys while we're playing, but yeah, let's get someone in. Hey, in fact, can you just pull it up on your phone and see if you can hear it?
Yeah.
Actually, I'll do it because your phone's.
But I'm not going to be on camera really anyway.
I'd also check it too.
That's true. That's true.
That's right.
That's right.
Oh, where's the live stream?
Nigga, please. Please, please, please. I'm doing my.
Yeah, we're live.
We have one viewers.
Can you hear it?
I can hear it.
Oh, you can hear us? Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking down at my phone. I was like, I can check it.
Okay, we're so back. All right, you can
We're
hit
back,
record,
Patriots.
Austin. Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it. All right, Patriots, we're back. This is the roughest start of any of my podcasts. I'm sorry. I've got Pine Sap here with us, and he has been with us. I wonder if I can edit this and post on YouTube.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you do that.
All right. From the Mountain Time Zone, we have Pine Sap in the studio. I, of course, am Whitfield. Did you hit record?
Yeah, not yet. You ready?
Yeah. Here we go.
Cool.
All right. I guess we're starting again. Welcome back to the Goldpilled Show. This is Whitfield with Austin in the studio, Austin the Wave.
What's good?
And with an esteemed guest, we have Pine Sap. Pine Sap is
How's it going, everybody?
How's it going, Pine Sap? You can call me Whit if you want, or Whitfield, or Goldpilled,
Yeah.
whatever you want. I'll call you Pine Sap.
That's perfect. I'll call you Wit.
That's not my preferred pronoun, but my preferred nomenclature is Whitfield, of course.
You gotta have nomenclatures and pronouns. It's the 21st century.
Dude,
if you don't have both, you're not doing something right.
Yeah, now I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I've been having tummy issues, and and I had to check in, or they make you check in before you get there, and they made me, before I could click next and then like approve I'm in, there was like sex assigned at birth.
Oh no!
They made me, and I'm like, did y'all not get the? Oh shit! Pine Sap's echoing.
Hold on.
Okay. Why is he echoing?
I'm trying. I just tried muting something. Try it.
All right, Pine Sap, can you say something? I don't know. Are you echoing?
Testing.
Okay, here we go.
We hear you.
I hear you.
Okay.
You're not echoing for me, but according to them, you were echoing.
It seems like now everything's going out of the Scarlet because all I did was mute the Zoom call.
Weird.
Because that's what I'm assuming, is that the Zoom is outputting through the Scarlet.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were duplicating by also screen cap audio.
Oh, well, that must be it.
Much better. Okay, we out here.
All right.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay. All right, great. We're back. We're so back.
We're back.
Welcome
I'm sharing
back.
the stream, too.
Say what?
Oh, I'm sharing the stream on my Telegram.
Okay, cool. Right on. Nobody can hear those keys but me, I think, which is fine. It's fine by me.
I'm just having fun.
You're just having fun, Austin. We're so back. Pine Sap's in the studio. Not in the studio, but across the fiber optic cables, across the universe, across the firmament. The signal is bouncing into various satellites that are up in the firmament. But yeah, we've got Pine Sap here. Pine Sap, tell me, our audience, many people know you. What's your arc? What's your arc into the church and into the right and into the church?
That's a really good question. I mean, what I would say is that originally I became politically involved because of Gamergate, because, I was a gamer when I was a kid. I wanted to go into game design. And because of that, when I saw people attacking the games that I so loved and the culture that I so loved, it made me feel like I needed to get involved or at least politically informed. But then when I got politically informed or politically involved, I started to care about things deeper than just video games. I realized that the rot wasn't even about video games. That was like on the surface, but this iceberg lying beneath it was an attack on white people. It was attack on Western civilization, and it was attack primarily on Christianity. And so because of that, I sort of went on this journey of discovery of, why is it that there's this conflict, this tension going on in Western civilization in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that Christianity was being attacked, it kind of got my mind jogging and asking the question of, well, why is it being attacked? Is it just because it's the, native religion? Is it just the religion of like the general, swath of white people that, make up our civilization? And it quickly became a question of truth. And I realized that Christianity was being attacked not just because this was simply the religion of our civilization, but because Christianity is true. And when people reject Christ, they tend to attack him, and they tend to go after him, and they tend to go after anyone who has any semblance of his name written on their heart. And because of that, I, for the very first time, opened my Bible. I instantly agreed with every single thing I read. I didn't find any issues with anything I was reading. Genesis made complete sense. I came to understand the order of creation, why we were here. The ways that Jesus has just a ineffable love and infinite love for every single human being. And that got me in this arc where I wanted to keep getting to the heart of the gospel, and I wanted to keep getting to the gospel church, right? The church that Christ came to establish, the religion that Christ came to establish. And sure enough, when I got to college and I was like pressed about my own Protestantism, my own Anglicanism, which was falling apart, I realized that it either had to come down to Eastern Orthodoxy or Catholicism, because those were the two apostolic churches. I suppose you could throw Oriental Orthodoxy in there, but I think they're kind of a little bit of a...
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like...
What are you, Ethiopian?
Kind of,
you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Come on now.
Well, it's like not many of us are Coptic or whatever, so I don't think that like Christ would have confided his church to like that little geographic region of the world.
No. So were you raised Protestant?
I was. I was raised... It's very interesting. I was born into an Episcopalian family,
okay,
but we didn't really like practice Episcopalianism like to the book. Like I didn't know about like the Book of Common Prayer or anything like that.
Right.
Most of my religious formation came from my parents and from this Lutheran preschool that I went to that actually broke off from the ELCA because they were more conservative. And so they taught me from a very young age that like the flood was actually real. Jesus did resurrect. The Bible is right about everything. And I credit a lot of that formation for why I even had any semblance of Christianity, or at least Orthodox Christian formation in my life.
Yeah. Oh, what state was this? I don't want to get like docs or anything. What?
Oh, it's Colorado. Okay. I mean, people know I live in Colorado.
Are you born and raised there?
I was born and raised. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
I was born in kind of a outlying. It's not like a suburb of Denver, but it's like an outlying city called Littleton, and then moved away more into the sticks when I was relatively young and lived there ever since.
Wow! And did you go to college in Colorado?
I did. I went to the University of Denver.
Okay, that's cool. Did you finish?
I did. I actually got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree.
Oh, cool. What'd you study?
Yeah. So I studied for my undergrad computer science, and for my master's degree, I studied marketing.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I went to college here in Nashville at Aquinas College.
Nice.
I studied philosophy, and that's where they converted me. The Dominican Sisters of Nashville, they got a hold of me. And they went,
That's great.
You're in error. And I had never heard it before, really put it quite like that. And I'm like, I'm not in error. What? I'm a Marxist, like whatever, like, no, that's not. And they're like, no, bless your heart, as we say down here, you're in grave error. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so that became my arc. So were you raised in like a conservative family?
I would say so. Yeah. My family gave me this really good religious formation because I came from a family of a lot of my family's Southern Baptist.
Okay.
So,
Well, hey,
completely like the Bible's right and the world is wrong and that sort of thing. And
yeah, the headquarters of that
we
are in Nashville, SBC, Southern Baptist Convention.
Oh yeah, I mean literally you're at the heart of where the Southern Baptist Convention
Yeah, I'm in the
is.
Protestant Vatican.
Exactly, it's the Protestant Vatican. Well, and it's like one of my friends pointed out, if you go to St. Louis, like the that's like the Lutherans' Vatican basically,
Yeah.
and it looks like a giant office building.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The SBC had an intensely gross building downtown. I think they just tore it down.
Oh wow.
I'm not sure, but that's interesting. Okay, so you were basically raised SBC, but you then became Episcopalian, or you were?
Well, I was born Episcopalian and I was
see.
baptized in the Episcopal Church, but like I guess what you could say is like for a lack of a better term, my lived religious experience was like broad Protestantism.
Okay.
It was basically just like the Bible's right, Jesus loves you, and he died for your sins and resurrected. So like almost kind of like a mere Christian formation.
Yeah. Did you fall away from that at all before going into college, or after in college, or after college?
I've never in my entire life, from anything that I can remember, in recalling my religious journey, I never repudiated the resurrection. I never repudiated that Jesus was my Lord. But I did fall away when I was in middle school and early high school. I got really into Eastern religion, but not like Hinduism, more like Buddhism.
Right. Like a good
and
wasp.
I think the reason. What did you say?
Like a good wasp should.
Dude, absolutely. It was total white people Buddhism, right?
Yeah. Alan Watts shit. Yeah.
I think the reason why I got into Buddhism, and this is something I've talked about at length before, but, you know, I grew up in an area where you saw a lot of Protestants who, you know, it's like, I knew like that woman was on her like fifth divorce, right? But she would go to like the church on Sunday.
Go to liturgy. She'd go to divine liturgy. She'd go to.
Well, I mean, we didn't have any Eastern Orthodox where I grew up, so
I'm just taking pot shots over here. Yeah,
if we did, I mean, definitely, right? But you know, I would go to these like, or growing up, I would see these like evangelicals where it's like, I know that guy's cheating on his wife. Right. I know that woman's on her fifth divorce. I know that guy beats his kids, and there was very much this like kind of sickly, sanguine, like cultural Christianity where people were fake, but they were very materialistic and very almost hedonistic, I would say, where they would say one thing and do another. And I was looking for authenticity, and I was looking for an escape from sort of the suburban materialism that I think much of our generation grew up with.
Right.
And at first it seemed like Buddhism was that path, but
many such
the
cases.
more and more. Oh, go ahead.
I said many such cases with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why a lot of New Agers get into it, because they grow up that way, and it's like, it's such a meaningless and vapid existence. You know, it's like keeping up with the Joneses, white picket fence, like everything is about what you buy, what you own, having a Costco card, all those things. And there's no meaning or heart in that, right? It's just about like living till you die.
Right. Chesterton said that the suburban civilization should either be worshipped or burnt to the ground. And then he also said that the suburbs generally have one aim, and that is to increase the number of bathrooms that one has access to and to decrease the number of children one has.
That's so real.
So, yeah, I mean, he's real. I love Chesterton, but yeah, man. So like Alan Watts in San Francisco, he's the one who basically laundered or sanitized Buddhism, which was the domain of strange Laotians and Tibetans and other ethnics that were in California at the time, and almost exclusively in California. So he came along with the, I think, Inter-Asian Studies Institute, and you know, he's the reason why Middle America and anyone in America who's white knows anything about Buddhism or meditation or mindfulness or anything like that. He's the guy who kicked it off, and it's the same sentiment. It came out of the beat poets and the hipsters from the 50s who were, you know, in the post-war boom and feeling that kind of spiritual malaise. Now, that had been intense. How old are you, if you don't mind?
I'm 24.
Okay. Wow. I feel like an ancient. I'm Ankh. I'm your Ankh.
Same.
I'm Unc, bro. I'm almost 40,
Well,
and I'm a literal.
you're almost 40.
Yeah, and I got kids, and I'm a literal uncle. So,
But dude, here's the thing. You look like a man. Like you look like a like a guy I'd see out of like a frontiering movie where it's like you got your axe and like your like cowhide coat on and stuff like that, and you're like, Indians are coming down on our farm.
yeah,
I'm gonna defend them.
But Annie, bar the door. The engines are coming. Yeah, it's funny. I was at my baseball party for my kids, one of my 4 children's baseball season, and there were a bunch of other millennials with me. And around my age, one was a little bit older, and the woman was, and I was like, I kind of like being middle aged. And she
It's
goes,
nice.
and she goes, middle aged. I go, yeah, And she goes, I refuse to think like that or whatever. I go, okay, well, you're 40. At what point are you not you're a grown woman. Like, I'm a grown ass man. I feel like a grown ass man because I am. I've got kids. We just ran the stats on this the other day. I'm like 0.3% of the population, white, with kids, 4 kids under the age of 18, like with my wife in the house, owning a home.
Who are Catholic.
Yeah, who are Catholic. Like, I'm like 0.3% of the population. Yeah, I'm a grown ass man. I think that's weird that people have this aversion. I like being middle-aged. There's some parts I don't, like having a weird tummy issue I got to go check out tomorrow. And I'm not quite as spry as I was when I was your age. 24. Dude, when I was 24, I could never sleep. I could do whatever I wanted. I could run on adrenaline. I did. I ran on adrenaline. I just ripped cigs all the time. I didn't give a shit. And then once I hit my mid-30s, I was like, okay, I'm grown. I feel like fully grown. But yeah, okay, so you're in the suburbs. You're going, this is ticky-tacky, ticky-tacky little boxes everywhere. And the suburban religion is beige and a boomer and lame. And so, I don't know about this. I had a similar kind of experience. Now in the South, it's much different than it is out west or in Colorado, I'm assuming, because everyone here is very, very, as Flannery O'Connor calls it, the South is not so much Christ-centered as it is Christ-haunted. And so the South, at least when I was growing up, one of the third question you ask people when you met them, first their name, second what do they do for work, and third where do they go to church. That's still done here, especially among natives to the city. The city's swollen in size over the past decade with transplants and refugees, political refugees, that is. And so that's not so much a common question, but that's kind of how it is down here. So it's like, where do you go to church? Oh, I go to First Baptist. I go to, this Presbyterian church. I go to the Episcopal church. I'm Catholic. That's kind of those are the line of questioning. But still, especially in the 90s when I was growing up, there was this kind of like, but and my church kind of stayed out of the culture wars, even at the time. So I wasn't like, and I didn't grow up in like a home that was like, listen, metal's from the devil, rap music's, a forbidden jungle beat that's trying to make you twerk. Like, I didn't hear any of that shit. That was not what I grew up, I didn't hear that. So I wasn't like, I'm a culture warrior. Now, we were conservative, but it wasn't like it is now, especially. Now, I'm not exactly going to my kids and being like, listen up, don't you ever listen to that jungle music. I'm not like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like,
like busting down the door.
Yeah. Like,
well, it's funny because like, okay, so Protestant families will be like, if you ever listen to metal, son, you're out of this house. But then it's like, now I'm going to go have sex with my wife using contraception. It's like, okay, dude, like, you're putting the cart before the horse. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Now I'm gonna do things to your wife that men used to go to the whorehouse for. to my wife. Like that's what it's cognitive dissonance.
Well, dude, it's like Mike Winger being like, well, you shouldn't listen to that music because it's not very Christ-like. Also, masturbation's totally fine. And it's like, dog. You are like, stop.
Stop, bro.
That is That is so bad.
Like you're in real life coal posting to your own children.
Exactly.
Ugh. Yeah, man, it's weird. Being in the Protestant Vatican, my wife, I live in the belly of the beast. I live in Nashville, which is Democrat run, and it's our mayor is like Mamdani, but Jewish, and he's cringe. He's the penultimate bug man. If you were to look up if you were to say Grok generate bug man, he would be in the slate of the lineup of characters. So it's strange though. As a Catholic, my next door neighbors, they've got a pride flag, or they did. They took it down, thank God, literally. And they took it down, and they're doing like moms protesting guns and doing all this shit. And they don't talk to us because they know where we're at. Our other neighbors do talk to us, even though they're somewhat liberal. But like our immediate neighbors are very militant liberals. And during the year of our Floyd, with the riots and everything, my wife was like, why don't we just move to Williamson County, which is the richest county in the state. It's very Republican, although they did little Marco in the primaries, I think in 2016. But, and I go, well, the problem is I can get along with the liberals on like some healthcare stuff, some of the environmental stuff, labor issues, public transportation, even to an extent. But when they hear about abortion and sodomy and gender, they're like, this guy's radioactive and toxic. Similarly, when I go to the burbs and I'm on board with a lot of what these other people are saying, but I tell them that using contraception with your wife is gay, like I'm not invited back to the cookout.
No.
So like I'm in a kind of weird, I'd rather be in the city and fight the good fight. And I'm also a very disagreeable person. So I'm not like, I'm not scared of these people. So I'd rather be in the city where all the action's at, where my kids go to school and everything else, and not retreat out to the suburbs where everyone is going to think I'm weird anyway. So I'm weird wherever I go as a Catholic, pretty much.
Well, it's so true. And the retreatist mentality too is not very Catholic. That's not what we do. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, again, people were like so angry that I said this, but like, that's like Benedict option crap, right? Where it's like, I'm going to go move near a monastery and like live like, and it's like, you are a lay person. You are not a monk. Like, if you're going to be a monk, but don't do this like half-hearted, like LARP about like, I'm going to have like a cow in a farm so that when they send AI death drones over my farm, they can burn the barn down with me and my family inside. It's like, no,
it's
dude,
retarded.
You need to, it's unbelievably retarded, and you need to fight, right? You need to be politically involved because, Catholics historically, it's like, I'm very inspired by the example of a lot of like Catholics within France, right? Like Catholics within France who were politically involved have forever changed the culture of that nation, right? And their legacy still lives on today. And because they fought against the liberals and they fought in a very manful way, they inspire Catholics internationally to keep up the fight. Damast, de Benold, even in Spain, like Juan Donoso Cortez, like all these like reactionary guys. I mean, I was reading a speech last night. I posted it to my Telegram, but like Donoso Cortez's like speech on like why dictatorship is like kind of based, honestly. Like if you have like a good dictator, right? And it's like he gave that speech to the entire parliament, right? He wasn't like living in his trad cabin up in like some, foreign rural region of Spain giving this speech. It's like he was on the like floor of their parliament just saying it like it is.
Yeah, and he
it's
probably
like,
walked there.
Yeah, he probably walked there, honestly. And that's what we have to do. We have to be involved. We have to be intentional because ironically, I think he said in the speech, he's like, the revolutionary has faith, but the liberal doesn't, right?
Correct.
The revolutionary that fights against us, like the radical liberal, they have faith in their cause. But we have faith in God. And if we have faith in God, what do we have to lose by being politically involved? Our lives? Okay, then I get to go to heaven.
Literally.
And my entire life is...
By the way, listen, I make good money. I come from money. That's nice. Okay. But let's say worse comes to worse. and I don't have any more. Dude, you can live. You can figure it out. It's not like you're going to die. This isn't like you're getting put into the hinterlands with a goat tied around your neck with a bell, and you're being literally scapegoated off into the wadi. Okay?
Absolutely.
We have a huge social net in this country, and yeah, obviously you don't want to be destitute. And you can run the risk if you have enough kids where you get into some big trouble. This is why family networks matter. This is why having friends matters, okay? In real life friends too, especially. Because you've got to have a safety net. Moreover, I would say this, at least in Tennessee, where, it's very, very red, the state legislature, the governor, they just deployed the National Guard to Memphis. If you live in I understand if you're in Dearborn, Michigan, okay? Like we saw, there was that clip of that guy, excoriating the Muslims who are taqiing or taqiing everybody with their Joseph Banks suits on. But if you live in a Muslim hellhole that's been already okay, it's taken over. We're not like that. Then maybe you can Benedict or something, because that's what Saint Benedict did when the hordes came to Rome and sacked Rome. That's a bit different than where we're at. Where we're at is, oh no, your neighbors are weird. Guess what? If you give your kid an iPad at 4, he's going to be just as weird. In a matter of 6 years. In fact, I was talking to my grandpa who lives outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, which is not, outside of around the University of Tennessee. It's not that liberal. And I'm like, yeah, our neighbors are weird. They don't even talk to us. Their kids look like, their girls look like boys now. Our kids are asking us questions. He goes, well, 2 doors down, there's a lesbian couple, living right down the road. And I'm like, you can't escape this. You're not escaping this. This isn't the 80s where if you're in the gay district of San Francisco, you got to get out of town. It's everywhere now. In fact,
it is.
What's his name? Scott Greer, the guy on Twitter. And again, to be frank, when I refer people, I don't know where everyone's at on these people. I look at it and see what I see. He's like, you're much more likely to see the blue-haired feminist at a rural Walmart now than you are at Harvard. So some of these things are shifting culturally. And so, a lot of the shit lib stuff from a decade ago has now trickled out into the rural areas, and the firmware hasn't been updated out there, but it's still out there. You're not going to move to the middle of nowhere and find Norman Rockwell zone. So to your point, it is a LARP. It's a LARP it's a fantasy rather, for the most part. Unless you're temperamentally very agreeable, at which point you need to steel yourself against this stuff. But if you're somewhat disagreeable, you don't need to be moving away from where you're at, generally speaking. You need to be finding the networks of your people locally. So,
absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And I was looking up something I actually read last night, pertaining to what you said, Whit, that really stuck out to me. And the guy who said it, don't be reading his books. He was kind of like a weird Lutheran theologian, but there was something very stark about what he said in his idea of we have to understand that God goes beyond the death of God, meaning the concept of the death of God felt in our culture, right? That exactly as you were laying out,
the Nietzschean sense. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The loss of faith, the loss of what it means to live out that faith, and we're seeing that manifested in the culture. Weird neighbors, gay neighbors, trans neighbors, all that kind of stuff. We believe in a God who died and resurrected. Our God overcame the death of God, right?
Correct.
The idea that God is just this big bearded man in the sky. It's that's maybe what people believe about Zeus, but that's not who our God is, right? Mm-hmm. Our God is beyond that. And it's only our God who can best the intellectual and moral errors of the time, because part of the other problem with retreat is a lot of the Republican people are still very liberal, right?
Yes.
I mean, as you said too, if you moved to that area, which county was it you stated?
Williamson County.
Williamson County, right? And you move there, it's like fine, maybe they're like a step back on like abortion or hopefully gay stuff, but even a lot of Republicans are now pro-gay, right?
Right.
They're still going to be like pro-contraception. They're still going to be like pro-divorce. They're still going to be pro all these things that reflect a lack of belief and lived faith in God. And the only way to overcome that is not by retreating to an older form of comfortable liberalism, like we're the Simpsons living in the 90s, right?
Right.
What's going to overcome it is the fact that God has overcome death. And because he has overcome death, he has overcome the death of God, right?
Correct.
So in that, when we're involved and we're forceful and we're converting souls, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also right now, so I'm older. And when in the 2000s, when I was your age, it was not fashionable whatsoever to be a practicing Christian. No. Certainly not a Catholic. And in the South, you didn't know that many Catholics anyway, so it didn't really matter. But, dude, it used to be like Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, just the cringe atheism, the cringe atheist, like the God delusion. These midwits were walking around pillaring anyone who was talking about God or whatever, and there was a lot of church hurt and, yada, yada. Now, for real, it's cringe. And I know we're all in kind of our own little bubbles in a way, but it's generally fairly cringe in America to be an outright atheist.
Yes.
Like, ew. Even Bill Maher. I've seen some clips of Bill Maher recently where he's like, they're like slaughtering Christians in Nigeria. Like that's not good. And he's like coming from this like Judeo-humanist perspective where he's like, well, we shouldn't be doing that kind of thing, right? I mean, we're all in the 90s still, right? Like we don't need the morality from Christianity, which is what he's drawing from at the end of the day. We don't need that. We've moved beyond that. We can just be humanists now, and we don't need to be killing everyone. Yeah, but that's not cutting it. And it's not cutting it, but moreover, it's no longer cool because it's gay.
True.
It's cringe.
It is.
It's fake and gay. And that's why when I started this podcast in like 2021, and we were saying shit like repeal the whatever amendment for women's votes and all this shit.
19th.
We were the 19th, but we were shit posting IRL. We were like, holy shit, we're going to get our banks canceled. We're going to get mega canceled. And when I became Catholic in 2014, this was before the online renaissance. When I told people that I was becoming Catholic, they're like, oh, weird. Huh. What's that about? And I'm like, oh, it's true. And they're like, whoa, like, what do you mean it's true? That's like my grandma's religion. What are you talking about? I grew up that way. It sucks. The pastor sucked and whatever. Dude, now it's like you talk to people now and they've been sitting in this stew of just nihilism on their feeds, on their social media, the TV they're watching, whatever it is. The hollowed out feeling when you go to a childless Thanksgiving, or Christmas times come around and no one's given the grandparents any kids yet. You've got this kind of malaise that's seeped in as a result and a fruit of this 90s popularizing of new atheism. So it's just cringe. It's cringe. And Saint Waves in the comments saying I'd argue it was the tipping the fedora meme. That's done more to demolish online atheism than anything else. Like we're winning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because, people talk about there's the internet culture side of it, which just r/atheism just fucking killed atheism, dude. It annihilated it.
It's like the libertarians, man. Every white man goes through the stage of like, all right, I'm no longer liberal, but I'm a libertarian, so I can still hang out at the party. And, I'll read some whatever, libertarian shit, von Mises and all that. And then you're like, well, we can all just like get along and, have a high social trust network. And then you realize that's not how that works.
No.
And then you move on and you go, wait, okay, libertarianism. And all that to say, nothing has killed libertarianism more than like the Libertarian National Convention with a guy wearing like a porcupine hat with his nipples protruding. Very disrespectful. Very disrespectful.
It's true. Well, And that's the thing too. Like, r/atheism represented this sort of on the ground culture, but even in the intellectual sphere of new atheism, I remember reading Logos Rising the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and E. Michael Jones is talking about how Daniel Dennett in the New York Times penned an essay where he said atheists should start to call themselves brights because we're so intelligent, we're so bright, right?
Yeah, we're so
We're
bright.
enlightened.
Yeah.
And Christopher Hitchens writes him, and he's like, dude, this is the most fucking cringe thing in the entire world, and you've basically just killed our movement.
Yeah.
He like actually just straight up said that. He's like, you've just killed our movement. You have just destroyed us. Like the intellectual pridefulness and just the like self-indulgence and self-seriousness completely killed it, right?
Yes.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, yeah, it killed it. It killed it. Like my kids are Catholic. They're not like, babushka level trad cats where like all they know is like whittling wood and doing, algebra with their fingers like a Chinese kid. You know what I'm saying? Like I love all my trad friends and we went to TLM for a long time. But they're not like no media trad kids, if that makes sense. They go to a school and their school is pretty conservative. There are some bad elements in there, but it's nothing like going to a public school. But more importantly, what they're hearing at home is backing up what they're being taught at school. And to them, it's pretty normal. And when I don't know the answer to a question, I'm not like, well, just read just believe it. I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. Let me look that up. That's interesting. I've never thought of that question before or whatever. Now, that's frankly few and far between. But every now and then they'll ask me a real head scratcher and I'll go, I don't know. And so my kids, and they've even been like, Dad, is God real? Because I prayed for this thing and it didn't come true and or it didn't happen. And, and I don't ever hear his voice kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, he's real. And they're like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I struggle with that too sometimes, or I have in the past. And they're like, oh, okay. But more importantly, when my kids like heard about like gays, they were like, my oldest is very like Thomistic, and is like, you could see her when she heard about it, she was like, wait, she was like Data in Star Trek. Her eyes like rolled back of her head. She's like Rolodexing all the syllogisms in her brain. And my middle daughter, who's a lot like my wife, she's like, what? Psycho. They can't even have kids. And I was like, based. Both work. You can work. You can work out why it doesn't work and take you 5 minutes to figure that out. And then my middle, who's much more, she's not as intellectual as my oldest. She's like, weird, psycho. And it's like, yeah. And they're normal. That's another thing too. They're normal. And so when they hear about like divorce, or they hear about, the other day, my oldest learned about abortion. Dude, well, I'll tell you this much, dude. When you're like in your 20s or your 30s or whenever, and you don't have kids, you're an adult, and even me as a dad, you're operating every day, and you're like, yeah, these people, these psychos, these evil people are up to this evil shit. Abortion's evil, sodomy's evil, all this stuff's evil. But when you watch your kid hear about it for the first time, and they're like, what? You're like, oh shit, this is like gravely evil and needs to be stopped at all costs. Like this is
true.
It becomes that much more clear and present as an issue, as grave dangers and evils. So I don't know, and I think people are waking up to that in their own way. Like watching porn, which is just gay digital cuckoldry. You're watching another dude's dick with a chick. It's gay. It's gay. It
is.
It's like you might as well be in the Embassy Suites cuck chair. With your own camera. Like,
that's
this,
true.
Let me get this.
Like,
angle.
whoa, I'm going to save this for later, right?
Yeah, I'm going to save this I'm going to share this with my friends.
This is a digital doggy bag I'm taking right now. It's like, bro.
It's gay. And so when you say it that plainly, and you have kids, and you're like, all right, the litmus test for scandal in the church, the litmus test for is this normal, the litmus test for is this a holy thing to talk about or to contemplate or whatever, is would it scandalize my children visibly?
Right.
So that's where I go. That's kind of the litmus test. And as far as sexual ethics, would my great-great-grandpa have done it? No, he wouldn't.
Well, and that's the funny thing too, is that, you know, when I do see like these like atheist liberal types like rail against Christianity, I don't think any of them were ever Catholic. They almost always come from evangelical families, and it's always families where like when they were a young child, they like asked a difficult. Now, some of them literally, it's like their objection is like, I had to wake up for church early instead of playing my like Game Boy Advance, and I didn't get to have poop sex, so that's why I reject Christianity.
Right.
But like, you know, a lot of them, like I see them and they ask like a question of like, oh, this tragedy happened, and I like went to my dad or my mom and asked, well, you know, where's God's presence in this? Which is a great question and a great way to actually deepen our faith. And you get some like boomer evangelical dad that's like, I don't know, just believe it. And it's like that's the dumbest. That's the dumbest crap I've ever heard in the world. Like, no wonder your son is now trans. It's like if you basically form his Christian worldview as like it is irrational. It is like we basically believe in this so that we're like less scared to face the, you know, horrifying consequences of death. Then they'll just find something else to believe in, or they'll just be hedonists and just wait and bide their time till they eventually die and fall in the grave.
Correct.
It's me, sorry.
It's all good. Here's the problem too. I'd rather it be, you know, in feudal England, right, or in like the Middle Ages. Your average peasant dad wasn't some mini apologist, right? He'd be like, yeah, we don't do that because it's weird, and the priest said that was weird, and that other guy from the town over, he did that thing and he died because that was so weird. And John said that some sins are deadly. And so when he did that thing with that other guy, they did it in the butt, and his butt fell out while he was plowing the fields because we don't have surgical mesh and antibiotics. Like we just don't do those things because it's like Chesterton's fence. Right? We don't tear down the fence before we know why it was constructed. So
right.
I'd like it's a fail. Now it is a failure of the church that you're just like, you used to be able as a Catholic to be like, well, I'm Catholic and that's what we all believe, and like, you know, and the priest preaches about it, and like, didn't you hear him last Sunday? That's what he said. And that's why, you know, he talked about how Augustine said that, and and here's now as a dad, you have to know it. You have to know it well, but more importantly, you pointing emoji, have to believe it. You've got to believe it for yourself, and and the dad's the most important. You've got to believe it for yourself. You've got to act it out. You've got to walk the talk, go to mass, go to confession. Your kids have to see you doing these things. I mean, my oldest is no like Saint Therese, the little flower. Okay. But she will routinely, like probably 3 times a year, be like, I'm not receiving today. I need to go to confession. You know? And I'm like, okay. And one time I was with some of my family, and they were like, who are Catholic, and they were like, why is she not receiving? Why is she not receiving? And I was like, she said she needs to go to confession. Now, she was like 8 at the time, and they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't ask. It's none of my business. The most I ask is, was the priest weird to you in the confessional? But other than that, I'm not like, what'd you tell the priest? You know? And plus, as an 8-year-old, it's kind of hard to morally sin, but I'm like, all right, are you sure it's mortal? You know, are you sure it's that bad? So, you know, I think they were kind of scared that I was becoming some like, you know, you're going to hell if you, you know, told a white lie to your parents kind of thing, which is probably what they were knee-jerk reacting to. But I'd rather it be that than no one ever goes to confession, you know?
True, yeah.
So I don't know,
No,
man.
it's a really good point. And I think it's one of those things where, you know, something in the pre-conciliar era of the church that I do think we need to bring back is, you know, so many people criticize what they call the fortress church mentality. Like, this is the church, this is the world. And it seemed like the argument against the fortress church was, well, you need to be good disciples to like be formed to go out into the world. But how does that have to be contrary to the idea of the church being our fortress? You know what I mean? Like when you think of like knights or an army or military, right? You always have a base. You always have a home base to come back to, you
Correct.
know, tend your battle wounds and stuff like that, and then go back out and fight. Whereas people like kind of pit those two ideas against each other. And so it's like now not only do you not have the fortress church mentality, but you don't even have good disciples at that point, besides those who want to like intentionally live out their faith,
Correct.
right? Which at that point it becomes like a minority or like a cult, like a subculture,
Right.
which that's not what it should be. It should be what every Catholic is doing.
Correct. Now let me dovetail this into a question I have for you. So where are you at with your own faith? Are you so like I know a bunch of from like Father James Martin, which I obviously know you're not, all the way to like Mel Gibson's dad and his or Pope Michael. Okay,
Oh, Michael.
like where would you say you fall? I know you're like I know you're Catholic. I'm Catholic,
Right.
right? First and foremost, but of the flavors of practiced Catholicism, where would you say you fall?
I like to now say that I'm just Catholic with no asterisks.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because like I trust the indwelling of the Holy Spirit within the church
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what that means. And that doesn't mean that like a particular pope in his personal actions can't do something that's imprudent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you know, every bishop is going to be awesome or whatever. Like to believe those things would actually to be rejecting what the church teaches on both those positions of authority, which is like indefectibility does not touch that like bishops are never going to sin or even fail in their duties, or even that the pope might not, you know, be perfect all the time. But rather, I understand that through all 21 ecumenical councils and from all popes leading up to Pope Leo, the church will never fall into heresy. She will never bind the faithful to error, and that the indwelling of the Holy Spirit means that Christ will always be present with us to the consummation of the age. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the faith that I believe in. And so for me, like, I hate when people even open up this question of like, oh, well, are you a Catholic that accepts Vatican II, rejects?
Yeah.
That's not even a question you can ask,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. It's like, do you trust that Christ is present in his church or do you not?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you accept the whole of truth or do you reject it? I mean, I was reading, there's a really good book series put out by Baronius of little nuggets of wisdom called Sermon in a Sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just quote books from individual saints. And I was reading the one from Archbishop Fulton Sheen, and he's like, truth either has to be wholly accepted or wholly denied.
Mm-hmm.
You can't parse it out. And the whole truth that I accept is that Christ is present in his church
Mm-hmm.
and that he defends his church. And that regardless of what may assail the church from either the world or inside her sacred bounds, she will never fall into error or heresy. And so, like, for instance, like, I don't like Catholics that dog on the TLM.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like, or you know, Catholics. I don't like people who dog on the TLM. I don't like people who dog on the Novus Ordo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like people who, you know, elevate the Byzantine rite like, oh, this is so much better than the Roman rite. I don't like people that elevate the Roman rite above the Byzantine rite. It's like, just be Catholic, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it is really as simple enough to say, I believe everything the Catholic Church teaches, and I believe God protects his church because that's what he said in Matthew 16:18. And congratulations, it's like you're an Orthodox Catholic at that point.
Right. Correct.
I think when people get into the sects and the like sectarian kind of thinking, they've already denied the role of the Holy Spirit within the church.
Yeah, I think it's. I agree. Yeah, I went to a Novus Ordo mass this morning, and we attend a Novus Ordo parish primarily. I will go to the TLM once in a blue moon now. We used to be parishioners at a diocesan TLM here in town, and then we transferred over after a tornado hit it in 2020. So, yeah, I totally agree. The only thing is like there are. I don't think that I'm very friendly to. I tend to be friendlier to people who are skeptical of Vatican II. Not on the basis of it being like an illicit council or something like that, but on the basis of it being needing, how shall I say, refinement, right? Or clarification. Like I know SSPX people, I'm friends with them. I'm friends with, I don't know any SSPV or beyond, but I know some SSPX people. I know some TLM people who dog on the Novus Ordo. I know some Novus Ordo people who dog on the TLM. I'm pretty friendly with most of these people because I move around a lot. I used to as a Catholic. Like, yeah, I'll go to TLM, I'll go to Novus Ordo, da da da. But yeah, like when I look at like the count, like with Saint Athanasius, right, and the Arian crisis, the Arians at the time, which were like 70% of the church, they would say, "Hey, I'm Catholic." Right. I'm Catholic. I'm in communion with the church and everything else. And I'm not saying like we've got a looming, I'm not necessarily saying we have like a looming modernist crisis where, there's going to be a huge schism or something, or clarification from a guy like St. Athanasius. But I will say that it's also not imprudent to say that it seems as though large swaths of the clergy or the hierarchy, the bishopric, at least hold some modernist views, or some of them are just outright modernists.
I would agree.
Personally, right? And even at times preaching and teaching modernist things. So, I don't know. I don't, what is it, like ultramontanism, where it's like, whatever the clergy is saying at the time, like I believe it because I'm Catholic, like, yeah, I think that should be the default kind of impulse for Catholics. But like, for instance, again, I go back to the litmus test. Is this going to scandalize my children?
Right.
Right. So like Aztecs dancing in the parish hall, half naked, looking like they're should be laminated on a Mexican restaurant tabletop. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Like, I'm not sending my kids to see that. And that should be condemned. Like,
I would actually not push back, but I think
feel free. By the way,
what'd you say?
Feel free to push back. You can't hurt my feelings.
I just wanted to say, I've studied, and when I say ultramontanism, I don't mean the pejorative use of it, where people just say like, I shut off my brain and just whatever the local bishop says is the truth. Like that's not Catholic. Like that's not what we believe, right?
Correct.
But rather like what ultramontanism actually is it's a faith in the fact that the world can be hell and even most of the bishops can fall away, but the See of Rome won't. Right. And this came out in the life of one of my heroes, and Whit, you should read about him, dude. He is honestly, I think, one of the most model laymen to look up to as a father and as someone living out Christ in his life as a married man. Louis Veillot. Have you ever heard of Louis Veillot?
No, I haven't.
He's amazing. He was a French Catholic layman who lived around the time of the First Vatican Council, and he was a journalist. And he had like 3 different magazines that all got shut down by the government because he would frequently like rail against Napoleon III when he wouldn't do something that was like Catholic. Right. So they would literally throw him in jail. And he would just like wait and then start another newspaper, and then they throw him in jail again.
Classic.
But if you look at his life, had actually no problem attacking heretical bishops. He did it actually frequently. Mm-hmm. And rather what his faith was that he knew that the Holy See would never fall into error. Mm-hmm. So for him, it was like, I know that the vicar of Christ, where Peter is, there is the church. And I know that the rest of these bishops, if they're not saying where Peter is or what is officially coming out of the magisterium from Rome, mm-hmm. then we have every right to resist their errors. And he did that with actually a bishop named, I can't remember his first name, but it was like Dupenloop was like his name or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he went after him in the media. He's like, you have no reason to deny the doctrine of papal infallibility. You are a schismatic. like you need to correct yourself and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And even Blessed Pius IX had to like write him and say, yo, dude, chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good, don't worry, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
his life, that's what ultramontanism is. Ultramontanism, I heard someone once say, like, to be an ultramontanist is to be Catholic, because it's like saying I'm an Athanasian or I'm a Nicene. It's like it's an element of our faith.
Mhm.
And what that element is to say, I know that where Peter is, there is the church, and any bishop or priest that does not conform to the utterances of Christ through his vicar,
Mhm.
I am going to resist with my full heart. That's what it means to be an ultramontanist.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't like struggle with it by any means. I mean, I go to the Novus Ordo. I have a faithful priest, faithful pastor, who's certainly not. Sometimes he doesn't preach quite as strongly on a certain topic as I would like him to, but he's certainly not spouting error from the pulpit. But yeah, I wonder, because as a Catholic with kids especially, I'm like, all right, who can I be around? Who can I be around?
Exactly.
What kind of cognitive dissonance is going to come up if my kids find out about the German bishops? Like,
right.
What's this about? And I do find it interesting in the kind of retreatist mentality in some of the TLM communities, where you get sequestered into an intentional Latin Mass community, which I love. I love going to TLM. I love my TLM people, but I do find it interesting that like for instance, the SSPX in Nashville has been around since the '80s, and they haven't needed to build a bigger building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, but shouldn't the law of like your exponential growth from your birth rate and everything necessitate like a bigger building? But they don't need a bigger building, And so I'm like, why is that? What's going on there? Like, and it's interesting. All the church politics and everything is very interesting. Tell me about when you came in contact with Nick and the Groypers. I'm interested in that arc. Don't clip that, or do. I don't care. Yeah.
Oh, I will.
So I basically Turning Point USA at DU my freshman year hosted Will Witt when he was still doing college tours, which they have completely. I don't know what back room they've put that guy in, but I feel like I never see him.
I never see
him. I used to see him all the time.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't know if he just like shrunk back from
Same
like
with Owen Schroyer, the Cup Destroyer. Whatever happened to him?
Well, I know Schroyer.
Did he get fired?
Owen Schroyer started his own show and got into it with Alex Jones. It was a pretty nasty riff.
Yeah. Anyway, that's an aside. So Will Witt.
So Will Witt. I mean, when he was doing college tours and a very prominent voice and face of Turning Point USA, one of the only guys that was like a normal white guy, not a woman or like a dysgenic gay guy.
Right.
He went to my my college around sort of like the fall of my freshman year, and I was meeting a couple of the other people who came from other Colorado colleges to attend and stuff like that, and really get like a feel for his speech and all that. And it was a pretty like nothing speech, to be honest. It was kind of like, we need to have families and read the Bible or whatever, and just kind of this like generic like hoity-toity typical be conservative call to action.
Right.
As there were two Jewish guys with MAGA kippas watching him say all this. So he's going through all this, and then there's this guy who almost looks like Patrick Bateman who's there, and he was trying to like trip Will up on a question about like Israel and stuff like that.
Okay. What year was this, roughly?
What'd you say?
What year was this, roughly?
Oh, this was 2019.
Okay.
So 2019, and
I think that's when I met Nick. I met Nick briefly one time at what was it called? Politicon in Nashville when he got kicked out. Whenever Nick got kicked out of Politicon, I was in line to get my lanyard because it was in Nashville and I live here. And I was like, I'll go to that. It's at the convention center. No big deal. So I roll up and there's Nick, who's not a very tall man, I will say. And I shook his hand and I was like, are you on the internet? And he's like, yeah, I'm Nick. And I was like, hey, Nick, I'm Whit. And he's like, oh, hey. And I was like, welcome to Nashville. He's like, thanks. And then he went in. So I met him briefly at Politicon in Nashville. Nice guy. He was with the guy. He had like a little posse with him, and they had on like the $1 million extreme like Epstein shirts, like the rap shirts. Like one of them had that on. And I was like, dude, where can I get that? They didn't have like blue hats or anything on. There wasn't. He was wearing like a sweater, like a striped sweater. That's what I remember. But anyway, I've met him before. But he was around at that time, but he wasn't as big, obviously, as now. Now he's on a generational run, but back then he was much smaller of a persona. In any case, so this guy's tripping up Will Witt at a TPUSA thing.
He kind of attempted to, and it wasn't that his attempt was bad. Will just gave a diffusing answer like, they're our greatest ally or something like that. Like it was such a like nothing answer that like basically was used to just kind of diffuse the question. Mm-hmm. And, from that point, I asked this gentleman, I was like, well, what, I really liked your kind of energy there. Like what, kind of inspired you to do that. And he's like, well, have you heard of this gentleman by the name of like Nick Fuentes? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I've never heard of Nick Fuentes. Like, yeah, I don't know, who he is or anything like that. And he's like, well, I'm a part of this movement, America First, and we want, no more foreign control. We want a Christian government, and we want Christ to be king and for this country to be put first. And I was like, sign me the fuck up, dude. Like, this sounds kind of awesome, right? Yeah. And so I remember that name. I'm like, Nick Fuentes. Okay, I'm going to like look him up or whatever. And, I do a little bit of research and I see Sebastian Gorka, Sebastian Gorka, right? Yeah. And he's like going off on Nick and he's like, these disgusting anti-Semites and they shouldn't be accepted in the conservative movement. And I was still a little blue-pilled on the JQ. So I was like, oh, anti-Semitism? I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that, right? I wasn't like a dispy or whatever. I wasn't a dispensationalist. I still thought that like Jews needed to accept Christ, but like I definitely was still sensitive towards that issue growing up in like a post World War II consensus world. Of course. And for a while I was like, I don't know if he's an anti-Semite. I don't know if I can support him. Right. But as much, I was watching a couple different YouTubers at the time, and one of my favorites was Political Juice. And he was this now defunct YouTuber who made these like MS Paint animations about politics, and they were actually pretty entertaining. Classic. He was really good at it. But he did like a stream on Nick and like Groyper War One, and I just kept hearing this guy's name come up. It was like I couldn't escape him almost. It was like I kept hearing his name and kept hearing his name and kept hearing his name, and the more I would like hear him say what his whole ideology was, I agreed with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, his take on women, I'm going to be honest. I was like, yeah, I'm in college and like the women here are gross. Like they are like actually nasty and like kind of horrible. I'm like, I'm glad someone finally said what I was like, am I the only one who feels this way? Right. And
now, were you dating in college at all?
I a little bit here and there, but I don't know. I'm very like, I don't know. I'm very, I'm going to level with you. I'm super picky with women, and not like picky, like in a way of like physical stuff, but more just like on a like emotional scale, I guess you could say. Like she has to like sync up. I almost see it as like being like a symphony. It's like if you're playing a musical note, another note has to harmonize with it. And a lot of women that I meet, it's just like, I'm thinking about being somebody's top guy. Mm-hmm. And this girl, she's thinking about like, I don't know, like ponies or something like that. And it's just not, that was just a stupid joke, but like, it's just not the same intentionality, I guess. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, women are retarded.
Yeah.
And I love them because of that. They're retarded in ways we're not, and we're retarded in ways that they're not.
Right.
And
right.
yeah, I love talking to women. I don't. I keep it pretty Mike Pence rule with my with women. I don't really talk to women who aren't my wife anymore, just out of respect, and also having custody of the eyes, custody of the tongue. You don't want to. You can't be friends with them, especially when you're married.
It's true.
There's just, what am I going to talk to you about? There's like
Weather?
2 women that I know of who I could have like a pretty meaningful like politics discussion or philosophy or history discussion with. I'd rather not. I've got a billion dudes I could go talk to about that shit. I don't need to know. So on the one hand, yeah, like I'd rather have my wife thinking about ponies than I would, Mabased return, Francoist regime. In a way that's better.
You're absolutely right. I think I should clarify what I meant. I don't want like what Sam Hyde lambasted, where he's like, if you need your woman to line up with you perfectly,
you need a man with Asperger's.
You want a man, an autistic man.
Yeah.
Like, no, I didn't even mean it in that way. I meant it more like there are girls that you meet that still think of not lay-based, siege or whatever, but like I guess higher things. You know what I mean? Like their heart is set on heaven and they have their eyes gaze towards God. And when you meet women like that, you very much feel it in your dynamic with them.
Right.
Most women that I meet aren't like that.
Yeah.
Even a lot of Catholic women. And I think that's the frustrating thing is like there's not like their eyes are never set towards heaven. It's like all these other things that just matter so little. And I think that's the lack of harmony that I feel. And so that's why I'm kind of like picky.
Interesting. I see. Yeah. Women are, men and women more so are generally unsettled without a man.
I would agree.
Men can be unsettled too, but as the scriptures say, a married man is concerned with pleasing his wife and things of the world and all that. And whereas an unmarried man is totally dedicated to things, can be totally dedicated to the things of God. So that's a real dynamic that Paul's talking about. But I find that like I'm glad. I used to really want that, where I was like, I want a woman who's just like, I got to like rip her out of the prayer corner, like, hey, we got to eat dinner now. Like, are you going to cook dinner for me? Oh my gosh, my waifu, I've got to take you out of holy hour. No, I'm glad my wife is kind of retarded and it's just like, no, that's weird. Gays can't have babies and like dinner's ready. Yeah. And like, I got to get because when you're married and you have and you have kids and you're living a normal life, there's so much shit that has to be coordinated that it's all about, like, obviously God comes first, then the marriage, then the kids. But like, it's kind of my job now to be like, hey, did you see this crazy thing on the news? And she's like, no, your daughter's been barfing on me all day. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, just to let you know, Trump bombed Syria, or like whatever. And she's like, is that bad? And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see, like, that I'm fine with being. It's kind of like when St. Paul's like, women should be quiet in church and then like ask their husbands afterwards about the things, not to interrupt in church. Be like, what does he mean by that? Like, so not everyone's whispering in church all the time. That's true too. So like, but if you find a woman who's docile to that, that's going to happen naturally. So I think when you're dating or you're looking to date a woman, yes, of course you want virtue first, beauty a close second, because you don't want an ugly woman. You want to be attracted to a woman.
Well, and you touched on that docility, and I think that's another thing too. Is like the docility element is very attractive. Like I met girls who have come even from kind of a more like not liberal, but more kind of like alternative background, and not alternative like in a weird hippie way, but like literally they're like alt, right? Like alternative
art
style
hose.
And. Wait, what did you say?
Art hose.
Exactly, art hose.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about some of the art hose is like they're more docile and will like ask me more questions about Catholicism than like some of these Catholic girls. Like some of these Catholic girls, it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe they'll even veil or whatever, but it's like they're kind of like Lila Rose. It's like they're very arrogant, they're very brash, they're very overbearing, and they almost try to like use masculinity as like a bludgeon for like when you don't do what they want. And they're like, oh, well, if you were a real man, you would do XYZ. And it's like, okay, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm not like, this is done. We're not doing this anymore.
Right.
You
It's
know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weaponized. And that comes from the fall. Women seeking to usurp their husband's authority and bludgeon them and all that. Now, not to say women, men can do similar things with their wives, but yes, that's not the issue now. What the issue is now, maybe in Nigeria, that's the issue. No, go take a bath in the cow piss before I even talk to you, and then after 3 days, once you howl at the moon. Maybe that's an issue over there, but like here, it's not that's not the issue. Now the issue is, are you gonna like henpeck me to death? Are you gonna longhouse me? Etc. So, okay, we got off on kind of a woman tangent there. But okay,
we got off on a track, but
woman moment.
The clip that I remember that cemented for me, and I would love to find it again. My support for Nick was it was on YouTube, and it was this clip actually shot over like Minecraft. And Minecraft, when it's a kind of empty scene, is strangely very beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's very haunting with its beauty because I think it's emblematic of like the real world, right? Mm-hmm. Like the sunsets and all that. And there was this shot of kind of like a typical scene you'd see playing the game when like the sun started to set. And he was talking about like what it meant to put America first. He said, why are we trying to save this country? It's like it's founding is Masonic and Protestant, and there's a lot of these foundational issues. And he's like, the reason we want to save America is because, this is the country that we've been given by God, and we want to put Christ on the throne. We want to make this country Catholic. We want to convert the hearts of this country. And putting America first means doing what's best for America, not just putting Nansen ideas and broken ideas first, because I had already started to become disillusioned with the founding.
Right.
And when I heard that, it cemented in my head, this is the guy I need to be listening to. I've never, I've read it in books. I was reading plenty of guys. I threw out their names before, but I was already reading like Damast and St. Thomas Aquinas and all these thinkers that said those exact same things. But I didn't hear any modern political figure on the right take all of that and lead with the natural conclusion of this is what it means to put our country first. We're not trying to save the Revolutionary War. We're trying to save the heart and soul of America, which has been even dying since the founding. And to hear someone put that in such a succinct and eloquent way, I think really sealed the deal for me. And at that point, I said, you know what? This Nick guy, he gets it. And he gets a lot of the things that he's been saying I jive with and I agree with. And it even opened me up to the fact of like, maybe he's right about the JQ. And so, one of the books people, of course, cast out there to try and prove the JQ is E. Michael Jones' Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, right? Great book. I went into it my first time reading it as a PDF trying to debunk it. I seriously pulled open the book, pulled open the PDF on Internet Archive and said, I am going to read this book so I can like disprove its claims.
Right.
So I'm like going through, I'm like, okay, Simon Bar Kokhba. Well, he didn't kill. Oh shit, he did kill Christians. Okay, well this guy who started pornography. No, this guy wasn't. Oh wow, shit. He actually was Jewish.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way Myotomies said this thing about, oh, he literally blasphemes Christ in his epistle to Yemen.
Right.
And at that point, I was like, the final nail in the coffin was sealed for me. I'm like, they have always railed against the Catholic Church. They have always railed against Christ since going back to the cross. When Caiaphas looks at Christ and says, if you really are the Son of God, come down from that cross and we'll all worship you. Right. We want a military Messiah. We want a utopia for Jews. And Jesus is not that. No. Jesus is God.
Yeah. E. Michael Jones, I had E. Michael Jones on my old show, and he J-pilled me live.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew who he was, kinda, but he had written Degenerate Moderns, and I wanted to get his Libido Dominandi. I wanted to get his I had gotten his contact through some guy up in Chicago, and we got him on, and so he comes on. He's got his bow tie on. He's in South Bend. He's streaming, and I'm like, Dr. E. Michael Jones, how's it going? And he's like, oh, it's going so good, da da da. And I go, all right, so tell me about Libido Dominandi. And he's like, I go, I've been reading some of it, but it's got so basically porn and lust are tools of political control. And he's like, yes, exactly. So in 1963, the Jews, and I'm like, okay, what? He's like, he goes, the Palestinians were surrounded by the Jews, and they had them under sniper fire in their houses, and then they pumped in pornography into their homes. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And I wasn't even like, Jew stuff. I was like, and what do you mean? Like, what do you,
where's the connection? Where's the line?
Yeah. And so then he went on, he like basically was like, oh, have you read the book? I'm like, no, I just have you on. I'm just riffing with you. And he's like, oh, okay. So here we go. And he just went on. And he for an hour. And by the end, my face, I was just like, ooh, this is like Rubicon shit. Cause this is 2020. Okay. And I was like, ooh, this is like Jew shit. Huh. I got to think about this. And it wasn't live. It was pre-taped. And I was like, I don't know if I can release this. Honestly, because at the time I was like, that's like, real ass Rubicon shit here. And plus I got to fact check whatever he's saying. You know what I mean? I was like,
right.
Okay. And so we get off the air, but at the end of it, I will say this, at the end of it, and he went on, he was very nice, but at the end I go, yes, I'm hearing you. Are we supposed to be converting these people? And he's like, oh, of course. And I'm like, okay, how many have you converted? And he's like, that's a good question. 3? And I go, really? You've converted 3 Jews? And he's like, yes. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like, because you're on the initial approach, I'm like, there's no way he's converting Jews, talking about Jews like this. You know what I mean? And he's like, yes. And so when we get done, I was talking to Zandy, and I'm like, dude, I didn't know he was like the Jew guy. He's like, no shit. What do you mean? Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't know that. I don't know anything about this, And he's like, yeah, of course. And I was just thinking, I was like, huh, interesting. Well, and so I didn't release a video, but I pondered it for the next month or so. And I was like, and I bought a couple of his books. I bought Jewish Revolutionary Spirit, Logos Rising. I think that's it. And then I was like, huh. So I pondered it for a while. And I was like, wait, so it's interesting because we can talk about Muslims all the live long day. And be like, yeah, they're bombing people and cutting their heads off in Nigeria and acting up. And like, we should have never given them we should have never told them what oil was. Like, why did we do that? Why did the British go down there and go, see that bubbling gross shit? This is how you become trillionaires with it. We should have just been like, oh, we'll handle that. That's a pollution thing. We will get that right out of here, right? Out of here. We'll take it away. And I thought, I was like, wait, we talk about Muslims pretty harshly, right? Or Islam, especially. We'll talk about Islam pretty harshly. And yet the Jews, you can't talk about Judaism or any blanket critique of like Jewish behavior whatsoever. That's just like off limits. It's radioactive. And from the post-war consensus kind of mentality and socialization, that's way off limits. You can't even do that. So so since then, I literally since like 2020, early 2021, I've been wrestling with, as a Christian, number one, how do I go about, as a Catholic, how do I go about incorporating ethnos right, into my own life and spirituality and the way I live my life in a charitable way? And how do I go about talking about the Jews in a charitable way? Because at the end of the day, it's fine to be edgy. You know, you can be edgy, but you will make an account for every word spoken. It says so in the scriptures. So I'm like, all right, wait a minute. Before I just go, and then as the show progressed, I got way more edgy with the Jews. Not as a result of you, Michael Jones, but because he was like, he presented the question. And so I did a bunch of my own research, and I was like, you know, and so we had running jokes about the Jews and all that. And I still do. But now especially with kids, like, how do you present this to the children? You know, how do you present this to Jews you might meet? I said this on my show the other day. I was in New York at a TLM, and afterwards we were talking about something, and this guy I knew, and there were two girls there by themselves that were like with us in this kind of group we were talking, and I didn't know them, and one of them was cute, the other one was okay, and then the guy is sitting there, and he's like, oh, does he know about the tribe? And I'm like, yo, chill. I don't know these people. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, what the fuck? And when the cute girl was like, the what? You know? And I was like, don't worry about it. So what do you do? Like, have you been Catholic? She's like, no, I came into the church last Easter. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What, were you like raised Protestant or something? She's like, no, I was raised Jewish. And I went, oh. And my friend was standing here, who's a good dude. And he kind of was just like, oh shit, like, whoa. And I don't know if it was a movement of the Holy Spirit or whatever. I was like, hey, chill, dude. Like, we don't know calm down. I don't know these girls. Like, I don't know. Do you know these people? You know? And he was like, oh, well, that's cool. And he finally was just like, oh, that's cool. Like, and I was like, right? I mean, are we supposed to convert these people or not? You know what I'm saying? And
exactly.
So, and I know Jews. That's I grew up not around Jews, but in college I met Jews. I had a Jew in my band. And in fact, the Jew in my band started watching my show secretly. And he texted me, and he was like a left-wing guy, went off to New York, went to the super left-wing college, like all this stuff. And he texted me and was like, hey man, I don't know if you want to get lunch with a mudblood like me, but let's get lunch. And I was like, okay, cool. So we went to and I was like, dude, chill. And I said, let's get lunch. So we went and got lunch, and he's like, so, we caught up. He's like, I think we have a lot more in common now than we did back in the day. I've been doing some reading, And he started talking about like mold bug and like some of the dark reactionary stuff, you know, the NRX stuff. And, he's reading, what's that guy's name? Dugan. And, he's just getting in that world, and I'm like, okay, cool. And he poured his heart out to me about his situation at home. And he was going through a difficult situation with his family. And I was like, man, dang. And he's like, all I want is a wife and children, And I'm like, right on, dude, And he's like, I'm dating this Catholic girl from New York. And I'm like, right on, And he's like, so what do you think of me as a Jew? And I was like, dude, well, I think you need to repent and you need to be baptized. That's what I think. He's like, sure. I mean, you're a Catholic and I'm a Jew. And I go, right. He goes, but what do you think of me as a Jew? And I was like, well, dude, that's interesting. I've always liked you, and I had so I just went on and I was like, I had a very human moment with the guy, right? It was not online. This was at lunch with a dude. I wasn't like, you are Jewish. It wasn't like, you're a Jew. So that's what I'm saying. So that's where I've been wrestling with, like, all right, it's fun now because you're breaking out. It's almost like in the 50s when you could smoke pot, or 60s, you could smoke pot, you could use contraception, and the sexual revolution came, and everyone's like, yeah, we're just going to have orgies and go to Woodstock and be gross. And like, whatever, puritanical dad, fuck you. And they went crazy with it. And so I feel like that same kind of crescendo has happened with the JQ, where it's like, dude, we've never been allowed to talk about it, so you are Jewish. You know what I'm saying? And so
absolutely.
So I'm like, dude, okay, but I know Jews and I want them to convert, and I don't want to be an edgelord to them. You know, so that's what I've been wrestling with as far as the JQ goes, if you will. And I know ethnic Jews who are Catholic, who are great people. One of them's in the chat, and he one time he was supposed to print some T-shirts for us, and he called me, and he's like, "So, where do you get your garments?" And I go, "Hold on a minute. That's the most Jewish shit anyone's ever said to me, at least this year." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "What do you say?" I go, "Shirts, clothes, garments?" And he goes, "Yeah, your garments." And I go, "That's so Jewish." And he goes, "What can I say?" And I go, "Nothing really." And he goes, "Yeah, okay." And I go, "Well, that's fair enough. I mean, what are you, in the garment district?" Oh, and he was like, so anyway, I don't know. What do you think about everything I just said?
I think my problem that I see online is there are two rival schools of thought that are both deficient, and I don't think serving the Lord, where one identifies kind of the maybe I don't want to say overextension, but the sort of like taking the information that you learn about Jews and then misusing it to like do something bad or immoral, like, you know, going up to like a random like Hasidic guy on the street and like throwing coins in front of him or
like
something.
The Dave Portnoy.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I kind of like, I laughed at that more because I do think that Dave Portnoy is a fucking asshole, and like it's more like I don't like Dave Portnoy and I think he's a Jewish supremacist,
Sure.
but you know, doing that to like just some random Jewish guy like that is a violation of Christian charity, because in doing that you're not communicating any love for his soul or wanting him to accept Christ. You're just being edgy, right? And you're just being needlessly destructive. And so I think there's people who see that and then they way overcorrect, way overreact, and they basically say, and this is why we could never talk about the JQ, because look what's happening. No,
right.
I want you to understand, not you, Whit, but this person to understand, you caused this. Because you refuse to talk about the JQ at all, you caused this. This is what E. Michael Jones says. Actual anti-Semitism, like actual Schindler's List, like rounding people up or hating people or whatever, is caused by silence on the JQ. Because when people are frustrated, then they resort to more radical and strange and anti-Christian means of dealing with a problem that they intuitively know is a problem. Mm-hmm. And so those people have every, like they will have to answer a judgment for creating the same actions they claim to be, contradicting and criticizing. And then there's this other group of people that it's like, they learn about the JQ, but they don't see the ultimate way to overcome the Jewish question is through the love of God. Mm-hmm. I've constantly said this, but the only way we can overcome Jewish bigotry and hatred is with Christian love, right? Mm-hmm. And Christian love, properly understood, because, you know, you get some pagans and they're like, oh, so you're just saying we should lay down and just take. No, that's not what it means. What it means is that you try to bring that person out of error and into the light of truth. They are, to use the analogy from Plato's cave, they are watching the shadows on the wall right now. You need to be the person who reaches down in the cave, the virtuous man who reaches down in the cave and says, brother, there's higher life and there's sunlight out here, and I want you to see it. And that's the real response to the JQ.
Yeah.
The response isn't saying, because I do get people online who, like, look, there are problems with conversos and stuff like that. I do think that there are people who they convert and they don't really fully convert. They still have too much of allegiance to their former Judaism, and their heart needs to be circumcised. But I have even seen people who look at Catholics who come from that background and are legitimate Catholics, and they're not ashamed of the Inquisition or their crusades or what have you. And they say, well, because you have this indelible mark of being a Jew. You'll always be a Jew. That is not a Catholic attitude.
Correct.
That does not come from Christ. That comes from the devil. And I would encourage you to stop reading Kevin McDonald and making him your religion. I mean, Kevin McDonald, don't get me wrong, Cultural Critique is a good book.
I've never read it.
I know there's a lot of information in it that's valuable, but this like biological determinism of like, oh, well, a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, that's not accurate at all. The issue is not a ethnic problem. Ultimately, it's a theological problem. I don't think that Jewish people have any sort of biological determinism that makes them carry out this evil. I think it's completely a theological impulse that comes from rejecting the Son of Man. But once they overcome that rejection, they become incredible Catholics.
Yeah.
Saint Edith Stein, the Lemon Brothers, David Goldstein, all these people who served Christ's church and were faithful Orthodox Catholics, they overcame the Jewish revolutionary spirit with the grace of God. And that's the real solution to the JQ. It's not these edgelords on Twitter who think that someone can never really convert or that we're always going to keep a keen eye on them or what have you. Mm-hmm. It's the fact of the matter that when you accept Christ coming from a Jewish background and you actually accept him, you're not a subversive converso, but you actually accept him into your heart, you become one of his beloved children and you become incorporated in this larger body. And we have to emphasize that truth against the people who don't want to talk about the JQ or the people who identify it, but then take it in weird and strange directions that are foreign to the Christian life.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear a lot on Twitter about low IQ anti-Semitism. And I find that to be a fascinating discourse on Twitter now. You know, you've got, I don't know these guys. I don't know any of these people personally, but like some people will be like, well, Jake Shields, you know, you got Jake Shields over here. Maybe a good guy. I don't know. I don't know what your opinion is on him. But, you know, he's like, it's the Jews every time, like on anything. And he's just like, you're Jewish. Like, you know, and I'm like, dude, okay. And from my understanding, like the whole, even like during the Dreyfus affair and all this kind of stuff back in the day, the whole idea of like, okay, the Jews are not Catholic, they're not Christians. And yet especially because of the medieval kind of rubrics or standards around the Jews, meaning you don't harm them, you don't, you know, they kicked them out of their countries, obviously, but you're not to harm the Jews. They're a testament to the old ways, right? You know, but it was seen among the intelligentsia of the time that like anti-Semitism, or not even that, just talking about the Jews and like, what do we do here? Because this is an obvious pattern of behavior and a problem. That was seen more of like a considerable thing. And I mean that like literally, like it was to be considered and have much consideration around it. Now it's like, it seems to me, especially watching this whole discourse unfold over the past 8 years, especially, it seems now it's like, all right, every Zoomer in high school is like, you're Jew, you know, that's the Jews. Like automatically. And it's funny to an extent, right? And I find that, I'm watching the same reels as everyone else. It's funny. There's funny shit on there. But at the same time, like my friend who I had lunch with, he was just like, yeah, we're all kind of scared. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know what you were going to say when I asked you to lunch. And I was like, I mean, am I like really talking about the Jews a ton on my show? He's like, no, I mean, no, it's nothing crazy, but you know, I didn't know. In fact, the reason I wanted to get lunch with you, because you talked about that when the Israeli-Palestine thing kicked off, I did a show on it. He's like, I thought that was really good, and I'd like to talk to you about it, you know, all that stuff. And he's not a Zionist, right, this guy. So that's an easier thing to talk to a Jew about if they're not a Zionist in a way, because it keeps it more political. But then we broke into the religious and cultural discussions about it. But yeah, I don't know. It seems to me to be the flavor, not the flavor, but an outburst now that needs response from the people in charge, if that makes sense. Like, I wish the hierarchy would be like, hey, we're not just going to shove Nostra Aetate in your face. with this thing. This is beyond. We need to put an encyclical out now. We need to be talking about this pastorally, lest we get this like upswell, this groundswell of low IQ impulse guys acting up. Same with like Islam too, I guess. You know, you don't want people drugged through the streets in Dearborn, that kind of thing. But, you know, there's not so much of a groundswell here in America about the Muslims. In England there is, and rightfully so to an extent. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
We talk about ultramontanism. Like the church needs to be coming out and being like, yeah, we see what you're saying. We know what you're saying. Here's how you handle it, you know, pastorally. But you're just not seeing that from anyone. And so what's happening? The laity are having to go. Now we're on a live stream, you know, deliberate, like, you know, talking about our own thoughts on the subject. So it's interesting to me. And I will say this. I think that Nick and others, myself included, although I'm nowhere near the reach of anybody, I've got a very small following, are tapped into this postmodern, post-industrial masculine malaise where we're looking for answers here. Why is our life, like in many ways our life is way easier than it used to be or could have been. You know, we got antibiotics. I'm going to probably go get a scope down my throat to check on my stomach tomorrow. You can get an MRI, which is magic. My radiologist cousin-in-law, I asked him how it worked, and he's like, it's magic, dude. I don't know. It just makes all your electrons point a certain way. I don't even know how it works. I just know how to read it. And I'm like, okay, that's magic. We have all these things. We can eat fairly easily, etc. But then the foundational things are much harder. You know, who are we as men, as white men? Who are we as Catholics? Who are we? What is my purpose here? And why does everything suck? And to me, as a Catholic who was on the front end of the juice, like the now Jew stuff, where I'm like, all right, I'm getting pilled by E. Michael Jones in 2020, dude. Okay, 2021. Like, I find what I don't like about the modern Jew discourse is it's kind of like I guess Jared Taylor talks about this. He's like, when it rains on your birthday, it's Jew. Gavin talks about this stuff too, where it's like it almost becomes reverse Kangs to an extent, where like you've got unmoored young men, of which I was one, and they're like, well, why does everything suck? Oh, it's because the Jews made my life decisions suck even worse than they would have, and you know, whatever. And so I'm like, all right, yeah. It's kind of like black crime, dude. Like I've got plenty of black friends. It's like, yeah, I know 6% does 50. Like, am I going to go call someone a nigger, like to their face just because it's funny? You know, like, or like, am I going to let that be a barrier to like bringing them into the church? No, never. Same with the Jews. It's like, okay, duly noted. And here we go. I'm never going to be like, no, that's all bad. We shouldn't talk about these things. But it's also, I don't want to make either of those things like the main thrust of my messaging on my show, if that makes sense, you know? So
it has to be the problem with the world is that the world has a way of reacting in these ways that misses the whole truth. Right. And I think recently we've seen people kind of try to use almost what I would call like false flag events to, again, go back to the whole silence. Oh, we need to censor this stuff again. If we talk about Jews, you know, there's going to be a second Holocaust and all that. And it's like, no, that's wrong. We need to talk about this. But
yeah,
what
like
we
Ben
do with
Shapiro
that
shit the bed. Like getting on Megyn Kelly and being like, you know, he had, in fairness, in intellectual fairness, he had a couple of okay points. But then it's all blown up by his kvetching about, it's like, dude, how are you just not able to get out of your own way here because of your Judaism? I just, at this point, it's not like he's a malefactor, bad act. I'm like, oh, he's a Jew, like a Jewy Jew. Like he can't get out of his own way because his mind is darkened. Like, and I don't even mean like, I mean, of course it's all spiritual, but I mean like pragmatically as far as his own political ends. Like it's
Oh
spilled
yeah.
over now where he's like making an ass of himself on Megyn Kelly, like, crashing out. And I'm like, bro, chill. You, like the calmest person in the room wins, dude. You got
It's
to
true.
like calm down. Like if you're this threatened, even if you feel this threatened, this kind of impassioned crash out's not going to help you. Like you've got to be like, okay, well, we've got some issues here that we need to discuss, and you know what I'm saying? Like you're like, oh, okay,
Absolutely.
dude, wow, huh? You're in hostile territory, I guess now, but you're crashing out on Tucker Carlson, dog. Bless your heart.
This is bad.
Bless your
Well,
heart, bro.
and what I would say is that, and I'm just using these terms colloquially. I kind of hate using the term anti-Semitism because what does that even mean?
Right.
But when I use it here, I mean like an actual hatred for Jewish people, like the most narrow, like you are actually what people think you are, kind of a deal. But I think the error of philo-Semitism is denying the problem and just throwing it to the side. The error of anti-Semitism is taking the diagnosis of the problem and using it to justify a faulty conclusion. And the Catholic response in there is is accepting the diagnosis and using that then as a means to convert the Jewish people. That has to be our MO. That has to be our response. And that's the only response. If we're not doing that, we're shirking our sacred duty before God, and we will have to answer in judgment. I said this on a stream. We will have to answer in judgment for us hearing the Great Commission, go and baptize all nations in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and saying, well, Lord, I did that except Jewish people because, they're saved without you. You're going to go to hell if you believe that.
Right.
I will just be blunt. Like anyone who says that and tries to pretend to be Catholic, you will go to hell if you deny your missionary duty to the Jewish people. You need to go convert them. 100%. Every single nation needs to be baptized. And just because someone has magic DNA or magic blood does not make them exempt from that Great Commission. You have to love every single person. And because you love every single person, you have to convert every single person.
See, this is why Nostra Aetate needs to be clarified, okay, and refined. Because it was written by arguably a subversive converso. And then
I actually can clarify that a little bit.
Go for it.
Gregory Baum, who later left the priesthood, actually didn't have as much influence over it that people thought he did. It was actually Father John Osterreicher. And Osterreicher was a Jewish convert, but he wasn't subversive. In fact, his nickname was the Grand Inquisitor because he did believe that the church had a missionary duty towards the Jewish people.
Interesting. Okay, I'm hearing this for the first time. From what I've read, though, Gregory Baum drafted the first draft and then helped push it across the finish line. And it's, frankly, Nostra Aetate in the language that it's written, while not contradicting prior church teaching explicitly, at least in spirit, is a bit confusing and does at least psychically let people off the hook. If you just get a regular layperson and have them read that, they're like, oh, okay, I guess it's not that pressing. That's why I say I think it needs to be refined.
Right.
So, it just gives the air of like religious indifferentism to it. So I don't know. I'll look into that after the stream. What's the guy's name again?
So Father John Osterreicher.
Okay, Osterreicher. All right.
Osterreicher. And the thing with it is that I would agree that, ironically, we keep bringing up his name, but Jones says this best, where if you do enough digging, you know what the church's actual definition of anti-Semitism is, and it's like basically what Father Gustav Gunlock, who wrote up a document during World War II that never got released, but I think really does constitute like the heart of what the church means when it says like hatred towards the Jews is unacceptable, which is literally like actual hatred, right? If you don't have that, you're not anti-Semitic, right? And in fact, what people oftentimes call anti-Semitism, like calling out Jewish error, is a duty of Catholics. It's not just like a right, it's also a duty too.
Correct.
But the problem is that, just as you said, Whit, we need a document that explicitly says that.
Yeah, we just need pastoral guidance here, because now it's like Wild West, and I don't think I don't think we're in danger of like camps or anything. But I mean, pragmatically, in the economy of salvation for particular people, it's like, all right, we could be slam dunking Protestants for sure, like with strong messaging and strong stances, but the Jews too, we could be slam dunking, and the Muslims as well. We could be slam dunking. We can. Buddhists and whoever else, we could be slam dunking. It's just like, dude, we are right there. Why are we not pushing this to the maximum? Like, the harvest is plenty and the laborers are few. The harvest is always plenty, and the laborers aren't exactly few. It's that the laborers seem to be not getting explicit orders. You know, they're not getting explicit work duty commissions, and it's like, okay, you know, how do we handle this? So, okay, all right. Well, I think we've talked about that enough. I didn't get a call. My phone did not ring.
No, of course.
My phone did not ring.
Your pager didn't blow up?
No, my pager did not blow up. I didn't get any lasers from space.
That's good.
No airliners seem to have flown over my office building spraying any materials. Okay, so dude, I want to have you back on. This is fun.
Dude, this was great, honestly. You are one of the best hosts that I've ever been on with. I'm not just saying that to glaze.
Thanks,
I really do mean that.
I appreciate that, dude. You know, it's funny. I got your number. I don't know if you remember this. I think I told you this, but I got your number. So Zandy left, went to seminary. We scrubbed everything. He's in seminary now. And I was like, man, I need a co-host. And I think Dan from Hallowed might have given me your number. This is back in like 2023. And I called you, and I'm like, and you picked up, and you're really nice. You've got a very nice temperament, okay? And I'm not so I mean, I can be a good host. I can play nice, but I'm pretty disagreeable. And you are too, obviously. You went on Jubilee, which is the funniest. I wish I could get on Jubilee, bro. That'd be the funnest. Hey, if you've got to connect, get me on Jubilee.
Go on their website. You can get on the sign-up form. You just need to send in your information, but they'll probably have you on.
I want to go on Jubilee so bad. That'd be so funny.
That'd be awesome.
Anyway, you get on Jubilee, so you're not like totally not agreeable. But when I called you at the time, you know, we talked, and you were like, "Yeah, man, I live in Colorado, blah blah blah," and very friendly. You're a very friendly guy. And I was like, "Okay, this guy's really friendly." And I think we talked about Nick some. And at the time, frankly, I'll end on this though, but at the time I was like, I don't know if I like Nick. I don't know if I like him. Like, he's kind of a Loki archetype, kind of a jester, kind of guy. And you were like, okay, well, I like him. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's not a problem. That's not a big problem. But then when I got off the phone, I was like, I don't know, this guy might be too nice to be my co-host. And I'm not kidding. I was like, this guy might be like I don't know where he's at in a way. And I probed some, but like, I was like, I don't know if he's going to be like comfortable talking about Jews and stuff. And here we are. I'm not kidding. And I'm like, not that I want to be like the Jew show, but I don't know. This guy, like a young guy, he's just out of college. Like, I don't want to like fuck his shit up, you know, like by having this guy on my edgy, contextually edgy show or whatever. So it's funny. So I hung up the phone, and I don't even know how we ended the call, or I think I texted you as like I found another guy or something, or I'm going to take a pause, because I took a pause from my show. But it's so funny to reconnect. And then when you went on Jubilee, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the guy. And I'd seen I'd followed you, but I was like, holy shit, Pine Sap is on Jubilee, like he's going viral. So I went and texted you. I don't know if you have the same number. I don't even know. I think we've been texting some, but it was funny. I was like, wait, I have his number. And the texts were from 2023. And you're like, hey, I'm on Mountain Time. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, holy shit, I talked to him in 2020. That's so crazy. That's so funny, dude. Well, dude, listen, I want to have you back on. If you want to come back on, I'd love to have you. I think this is fascinating. But God bless you, dude.
God bless you,
know?
brother. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
Yeah. At the end of the day, guys, here's the deal. It's fun to make Hyperborean edits. Okay.
It is.
It's fun to make, and I know they're not doing this as much. I hear they're not doing the Little Dark Age edits. They're not doing the Little Dark Age anymore.
I still love the Little Dark Age, though.
Me too.
I still love it.
Me too. They're not making the edits like they used to, but they're making new ones, and some of them are quite skibbity. There's quite skibbity. As a millennial, I still am learning how to comprehend them. But listen, at the end of the day, you can make edge. You can edge your bro.
Yeah, dude.
I'm just kidding.
You can edge Max.
That's
you know?
You can edge man. Max. I'm just kidding. No edging allowed. That's gay. But look, the bottom line is this: God has a plan for you. Pine Sap, me, Austin, everyone listening, and some of them might be some of the plans might be. If you're talking about trusting the plan, some of the plans might be getting on the internet like this and talking. Some of them might be not doing that, going into another field and doing something else. But at the end of the day, with everything you do, work it out with fear and trembling, because the internet's great. I love the internet. I'm on it often. I'm very online. But what you say is going to be judged. So work it out in fear and trembling and prayer and fasting and sacramental living. So yeah, Pine Sap, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fun. I want to further explore some of the other things we're talking about and get into other stuff. If you'll come back on,
I would love to.
Awesome. Well, dude, that does it for today. We're gonna wrap up. I will be back. I was thinking about coming back tomorrow because I was out some of this week with a stomach bug, but I'm probably not going to stream tomorrow. I might. Austin, you're going out of town.
Yeah, I'll be out.
Austin will be out of town, so if I stream, I'll be solo streaming, which would be awkward. But if not, I'll see you on